Hey, welcome to this episode of The Complete Advisor. So happy that you have chosen to join us. We are going to jump into, before I introduce our guest, of course, we're going to jump into a topic that I love to talk about, and it is specifically how an advisor, a successful advisor, is doing a specific thing. And in this case, seminars, dinner seminars, such a huge topic. There's a lot of cost involved, but the opportunity and the growth that you can get, the ROI can just be massive. So that's why we need to talk about it. We also, before we get into the topic, Chris, I do want to point out that this episode of The Complete Advisor, promotional consideration is paid to Diet Coke. Diet Coke, if you're listening, we're looking for that sponsor, reverse sponsorship there. So
it might work.
Like
you never know.
We'll see.
It's worth a shot.
So joining us today, Chris Cooper out of the St. Louis Metro. Chris, glad to have you here, man.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to dive into, you're doing dinner seminars, and what I want to talk about is I want to talk pre, post, and during.
Sure.
And so the first thing I want to talk about, so you've been doing dinner seminars for, well, let's do, I'll say your bona fides.
Okay.
Let's just establish that so everybody knows. So you've got a very successful practice, St. Louis Metro area, O'Fallon.
Yes, technically. Yep.
Technically O'Fallon, which has more than just that brewery.
Yeah, it does. I mean, why? But do you need more?
They've got, that's out there. So O'Fallon's out there. You're a full service practice. You are an IAR, so you're doing the wealth management as well.
Wealth management and insurance license as well. Yes.
Okay. So bona fides. How long have you been in the business?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Where you come from?
Yeah. So corporate. I was corporate strategy. I started way back when Edward Jones left, did corporate stuff. I actually became a CPA, licensed CPA. Keep that credential active. Had to re-up my securities licenses because I was doing corporate strategy, M&A, helping people designing 401k plans for companies. And I said, guys, I got to get back. I got to get back to helping people.
Get back to the people.
My way, which is I fortunately found the independent way, and it wasn't an easy transition, but it's been awesome.
So I worked for the sister company, which would be a, I don't know, step cousin, maybe. Not that there's any tie. There's some similarities, but St. Louis firm, A.G. Edwards.
AG, yeah.
And when I went down, I went to training, and I know Edward Jones has their people do this, where they would go and knock on doors as a prospecting method.
That was the biggest deterrent to the model, in my opinion.
Well, so I imagine, because there's a lot of similarities between the firms, at A.G. Edwards there was a giant room that had about 6 doors with steps to it. I'm not making this up. Think of a gymnasium with about 6 doors, and you would go and you would practice your spiel like.
Wow.
And so to this day, my wife teases me about this, but any kid that comes to my house and knocks on the door, there's a 99% chance that I'm going to buy whatever they're selling because I know how damn hard that was.
Yeah.
That was terrifying.
Well, that's nice, though. Look at you. You could have also been that guy that makes it really hard for them because you know how.
No. Now I'll walk past them at the grocery store. Like, get out of here. You're shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
You get out and knock on doors. I'm all ears.
I love it.
I'm all ears. Okay, so you're doing dinner seminars, though.
I do dinners. I've tried both. I have done both. I've been successful in both.
What will you say both? Lunch or without?
Educational.
Educational,
no meal.
Okay.
I like both. I've done both. I shouldn't say I like both. I prefer dinner.
Why?
And it is for one reason and one reason only. Captive audience to discuss, to talk to at the end of the workshop. I like to wrap up, and instead of when you do an educational thing, you do your thing, and then what happens? Everyone has this, I'll get classes over. What do? So you get this mass exodus towards the door. Now my wife, who's helping to manage the calendar flow, I can maybe peel off a few customers and things and kind of parlay that into a conversation. But you get that herd approach and mentality. I want that herd approach to be controlled, and I want it to be specific. With dinner, I really try hard to wrap up very timely.
Yeah.
I try real hard to have it be where they've got 8 or so bites left of that steak and stuff, and it gives me the ability to kind of, shake hands, kiss babies, all that kind of stuff.
Well, and if they have a full tummy, they can't move as fast.
Yeah, I've even thought about if I'm running long, saying, "Hey, can we do that optional dinner, that dessert? Let's bring out that dessert.
All right. Well, let's talk. Okay, so let's get into the weeds. I want to get into the weeds with you here. So, first off, let's talk about location and how did you select your location?
So location is pretty important, and it's
Yeah.
often overlooked. So you want the demographics in the area that's going to work for you. So the clientele you're going to be a part of, no one's going to drive outside of a certain radius. So find where you want to be, and then make sure that that restaurant, it doesn't have to be the Ruth's Chris and these really nice fancy steakhouses. If it's local and it's relevant and people know it in that area, wonderful. Make sure they're easy to work with. You want a pretty good sized room, but make sure that the staff is easy to work with.
So did you go and since advisors tend to work with people, I think ideally if you'd look at someone's book of business, that there would be a lot of similarities between them and who they're working with.
I agree.
So when you were doing that, were you kind of looking at, because you and I, we got a little gray in our facial hair here. So were you looking at like how far you would go?
Yes, and I also trust the industry experts too. Go with the folks that know human patterns, thought processes, right? Because we also have a barrier. I'm about 10 miles away from a natural river. There's a thing.
What's an unnatural river?
Yeah, well, that's a good. It's a natural barrier is what I should have said, right? The river is a natural barrier. People don't cross that river. So I don't care if they're within the driving distance. That's easy.
That's a good point.
It's a block, right? And everyone has that block in your area. You got to think about those things too. So we tend to go farther west than we do more east because of that natural barrier that exists.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because here in Kansas City, you do have the north of the river here, and it's like it's like a different city, and I think they speak a different language up there.
They probably do. You might need a passport. That's what we always joke around with my friends with.
So how did you you looked at a couple places? What clinched it for you?
A couple of places. I really have two places that I go to. They're kind of my go-tos. Decent sized rooms, and I want the staff to be very easy to work with, and I want the leadership team there, the management team, to understand that, hey, we're going to do this. I want it to be flexible. If we don't always know if we're going to have great attendance, I don't really want a place that has high minimums and things like that. I want a condensed menu. So I go as very specific as we have three choices. We have a steak, a chicken, and some kind of a seafood type fish thing or a pasta. Keep it very simple. If the salad can be simple as well, like one salad option, even better, right? I keep it very simple, very controlled, and if it can all just be a one price per whatever choice it is, that's even better. Take the guesswork out so that guests come in, they circle their choice, and done.
How important is when you're making your decision when it comes to equipment and tech? So do you roll with your own? Do you roll in with your own screen and projector, or are you just coming in with your laptop?
No, I have a projector and my own screen that I will do in casual places. So I've done an event at a local brewery, and that was a lot of fun. In fact, that was probably my favorite one. But that's because I wanted to do it there, right? So as a captive audience, it was my clients bringing friends. If I'm doing it at an event or at a workshop or at a restaurant, I usually use their equipment. They've got a decent sized TV in these rooms. So that's one of my criteria I look for. TV, classroom style. I like classroom style. There's a whole array you can go in, how you like it set up.
That's the next question, buddy.
Oh, there you go. Stole the thunder. So those things are important.
Have you ever tried rounds?
I could do rounds. My challenge is you got to do what makes sense for you.
Yeah.
I walk around a bit. So I'm a talker and a walker. So even like on radio, it's hard for me. I talk with my hands all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm talking with my hands all the time right now. And so I like to move around. And so I like to make sure that audience still has that ability to see me from all those angles too.
Like it.
So
you're wander-arounder. I like that. What about, so you've got your spot. You use your tech. Do you keep your projector and screen in case in your car?
I have HDMI cords in my bag at all times now, because what I end up finding out is that the folks they have the TV, it's usually going to work just fine, but sometimes the person before you took the HDMI cable and now the staff can't find it. So I have at least twice gone and had to go buy at local Walgreens or something an HDMI cord because it was forgotten. So I have an HDMI cord that I keep with me all the time. I have my charger for my computer. It usually I've never needed it, but it's always there. One time I did forget to charge my pointer, my clicker. That won't work for me, so I spend a little bit of time charging it, and was handcuffed for a while. I couldn't move as much as I wanted to.
That's it's those little things that
It is.
you don't know until it happens. Okay, so let me ask you this. So we've got the spot. We've got the demographic. Have you ever considered this? I've thought about this when I was making notes for today. You ever considered salting your audience with existing clients?
I do salt my audience with existing clients. I do it intentionally, and I do it as it does a few things. It brings your clients a reason to see you. It's another touch point for clients. It makes it easier for the audience to have a relatable person in there. Hey, and you can point them out. You can say, hey, Lisa, they see your interaction. I'm a hugger. I hug people. My clients hug me. Like, it's just one of those things. So having that interaction right there, when a stranger sees that, all of a sudden they let their guard down. And I'm sure we'll get to that, so I don't want to steal any thunder there about how you engage. But all you're really doing in these things is trying to let people's guard down so that they can listen to you and say, hey, is this someone you want to work with?
How do you ask the existing client?
So we've done a few different ways. When I go, anytime, I know what my event is going to be at least 4 to 6 weeks out, right? So if I have a client coming in for a review, I will mention, hey, I'm going to be having an event. Here's the flyer. This is what it looks like. Are you interested in attending? Do you know somebody else who'd like to join you? This is what we'd like to do, extend it to you. I will also get a handful, 20 or so invitations that I will handpick and send with a nice little handwritten letter, and I'll invite them personally. With my wife will write out the envelope, so it comes from us.
Yeah.
And if they've met us at a seminar, they know that we do these things, but a lot of people, they don't get another one, right? But they get them from everybody else. But now we're going to invite them to the old thing. And what I also do is I say in there, hey, all you got to do is bring a friend with you that would like a night out. We'd love to meet them and see, now you know that they've got the same questions you do. You're getting them good answers and a contact that can help them.
I like it. I like that. Okay. I hadn't asked anyone that one before. Okay, so day of.
Day of. So the event really doesn't start the day of. It really starts the second they register.
Well, this is true. All right. Tell me what you're doing.
I would go and challenge us to go back even further. So a couple weeks prior to, right, they get the mail. I am a big believer in contact right then and there. I don't believe in having whatever service you do. They already called that 1-800-whatever number. Personalized contact, whether it's you or your staff, I think that's very important. I will make those phone calls. I love making those phone calls, actually. I don't make a lot of them, but I enjoy doing it. It's my chance to say, hey, what's bringing you? What are you looking for? How can I help? What interest do you have?
So it's a confirmation call,
it's a confirmation call.
Confirmation, but I get to know you.
That's how I approach it. I'm a big believer in setting that stage, letting people's guard down right then and there. And then I will also include a video email from me, and that is always me, saying, hey, this is your instructor. Hi, how are you? I'm Chris Cooper, looking forward to meeting you and spending some time with you for the evening.
I like it. Do you give them any, in that case, since you're kind of priming the pump, so to speak?
That's the key.
Are you having them bring anything with them, or you're just letting them they're just getting a feel for you?
So one of the little things I always say is, I do want you to bring something with you. I want you to bring a thirst for knowledge and an appetite for fun or something like that. I can't remember what I say.
Nice.
But I do. I don't want them to bring anything, but I want them thinking about bringing things, right? I want them thinking, hey, I have a process. But what I want you to do right now is those questions you have, I want you to think about what's bringing you here today. I want you to have an open mind.
Are you, so besides the call, are you texting them or anything along those lines?
So I'm a big fan of services that help do some of that automation for you. So I like the confirmation taking place via text, email the day before. What we do 2 or 3 days prior to the event, we will actually do a customized video email. It's got me saying, hey, I'm at the restaurant. I usually shoot it from the parking lot of the community I'm doing this in, whatever venue it is. Hey, Chris here, and I'm standing right in front of the location of our upcoming event, and I really look forward to seeing you. Directions to the venue included right here in this communication. I can't wait to see you guys in a couple of days.
Nice.
That's my process, and I think, again, they already know you. That's what you want. I can tell when someone watches my videos. Well, first of all, it gets tracked. I can tell, right? The technology shows me who's seen the videos. But I also know the people that walk in and I don't look like a stranger. That's the win right there.
There they go. Okay, so now we're at day of.
Day of.
Now we're at day
Yeah.
of. Is day of a normal work day for you, or do you take the afternoon, maybe get into a certain headspace?
Yeah, afternoon is a certain headspace for sure. It is prepping. It is being ready to go. I always like little nuggets of what's going on. I try to stay personal connections. I try to work those or personal. What's going on in the world? The economics of today. What kind of things that are relevant going on in the world today? Can I slowly figure out how to work in to the presentation in some form or fashion, right? But yeah, we do a lot on the day of with personalized name badges for each and every registrant, setting it up, having the folders all nice and intact. In fact, we're working on one for next week, and I realized we're out of pens, so I just had to order more pens. I think that's important. Custom or consistent branding all the way throughout.
Do you do any when it comes to the people that are going to be there in attendance? Do you do any background research?
Yes. So I like to work with or the houses or the data that you can get to get a little bit of research, right? So when I do my events, I get phone numbers, emails, and there's a lot of arguments on this. Some people just say no email. When they say no email, that means no entry to my workshop, plain and simple. Because there are a percentage of people that just aren't going to engage right there, and I don't have time to follow up with them all the time. So I just say no, you're not coming, you're not qualified. Denied.
Well, so I've got it just hit me here a second ago that so of my two daughters, one of them, if I told her that you and I were talking today, she could probably do 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon and find out how we're related.
Of course.
Like she's just like bam, like that. And it got me wondering if anybody has ever. I'm going to ask more advisors this question, but do they do any snooping, any social media snooping, or? But now I realize, when I say that. I realize that if you've got a room of 20, 25 people coming in, and in the day-to-day busyness of our lives, a person doesn't have time for that. But I think you just found a side hustle right there.
Well, it's pretty cool. You can get a lot of information. So I will, after I talk to somebody, if I can find out in their information, because you can get LinkedIn profiles. A lot of times they'll have that, Facebook profiles. Addresses give you a lot of information. I look at Zillows all the time. I like to know their community. Oh, wow, they live right on the golf course right next door, right? Usually you can say, oh, used to work at Boeing or whatever, right? You can usually find that out. I like little nuances. One of the recent workshops I did, 2 ladies registered. I'm like, this is weird. 2 ladies, why? This is family. I want to know a little bit more. I looked at the email address, and the email address was a local bakery that had been around for 30 years that had recently closed. Like, I bet you that's those 2 ladies that owned it. And sure enough, that's who it was. So I was able to create that rapport right there. So any kind of unique email address, I'm always on. I think it's just cool.
That's smart. That's smart.
So yes, homework in advance where you can, if you have time. And if you don't, it's okay. But it's always nice to have that kind of information because all you're really trying to do is build some rapport.
Okay, so you've done the rapport building. What time? How early do you show up to the venue?
30 minutes, 45 minutes, because I tell my attendees to come in at 6:15 for a 6:30 sharp time.
Like it.
And I make a joke at the beginning. I said, all right, guys, so it's 6:30. We're shutting these doors. I'm going to give it to you. There's a few people that might still join us. Are we going to have them do push-ups or burpees when they come in? Right? They're coming in, but they all go, do burpees. I'm like, man, you guys are mean.
That is mean.
That's rough.
That's very rough.
So, but it just sets that expectation. We're going to start on time because I'm a punctual individual, and you guys have things to do, and you came here. We're not gonna delay. We're starting. But I also want you to come in at 6:15. Get all that nonsense settled. But if they come in right at 6:30, well, guess what? They still have to get dinner, go orders, and all that other stuff. You don't need that. So you want to tell them in advance. Come at 6:15, which means you better be there at 5:45.
I loathe when somebody says, we'll wait a couple more minutes we've got people coming. It's like, oh, no. You said 6, you said 6:30, we're going.
You're going.
So question for you. Is the registration table outside of the room? Is it just inside the room? How do you handle that?
Usually I'm inside the room. I could do outside the room if space is an issue. I like inside the room because that's where Stacy sits. That's where my wife sits, and she gets to kind of look at the audience, engage, and see all those kind of things. So she'll take some notes. She'll take some notes about who's doing what, all that kind of stuff. Get to familiarize with faces, with names, and all that kind of stuff as well.
What do you? So it's 6 o'clock. where are you physically at? Are you hanging out by the registration table, or are you off in like a green room somewhere?
No, I'm having a drink at the bar, getting ready. No, of course not. Yeah, no. So everything I do is developing that rapport. So if I'm the person that is going to show up right at 6:30, and everything I've done up to this point is to create that hi, how you doing? So I get there at 5:45. The very first thing I do is set up the technology. I set up the technology to make sure my presentation is up and running. Every 5 minutes, I go back and click the clicker to make sure it doesn't shut down for some crazy reason, right? It's just a nervous habit at this point. Stacy sets up the folders, gets everything all in place at the tables. We've already worked out the timing with the staff who's helping us on the evening. We've got name badges for everybody right at our registration table. They come in, they give the names. The very first thing I do once they sit down is I introduce myself, shake hands, and say, hey, thanks for coming. Where are you guys coming from? Oh, we're right down the street. Well, I knew that because you got the mailer and I only sent it right down the street. But again, creating that atmosphere. Oh, you got a Chiefs jersey on or a Cardinals jersey on. You go to the game today. What's going on, right? I use that. I want 15 minutes of just socializing. So that right when I start, their guard is completely removed. They're open. They're ready to listen.
I like it. Okay, so Stacy's checking them in. You're kissing babies and shaking hands. So you're doing name tags. I know where you're at now. So it's time to start. It is time to get this party started. Is the room? Do you prefer a lav mic, the clip-on mic, or do you prefer to go au natural?
Yeah, so I could probably speak from here to California with no mic. I just have one of those voices. So I don't need a mic. I don't use a mic. I don't like podiums. In fact, if there's a podium, the very first thing I'll do is I'll tuck it over to the corner. I move around a lot, and I try to keep people engaged with that. I talk with my hands quite a bit, as I mentioned earlier. So that's kind of my style. I think the key is find the style that works for you. And if you're not comfortable and you need that solid base, that's where your notes are, and that's fine. I put the slide up there, and I say everyone in this room can read this slide.
Absolutely.
You're not here for me to read the slide here. I'm going to tell you what this slide really means.
Yeah. Now, for me, I will tell you, I am a lavalier mic guy. I cannot stand when I get on any stage work I do. I'm naturally a soft talker. I can raise my voice to whatever, but I'm naturally a soft talker. And so I personally
So it's
prefer
comfortable for you.
It's very comfortable.
I've seen you using your lavalier mic. So.
And in fact, I can't stand, one thing I absolutely hate, I hate a handheld microphone. Which is funny when you see comedians, like when they go on like Saturday Night Live and they're doing the monologue and they'll reach over because they're just so used to it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a microphone, right? Or there's the boom mic, but they'll like reach over because this is what I'm used to doing.
I wouldn't know what to do with my hands because I talk with both hands so much. You wouldn't hear me the whole time.
It would be like, and then you'd hear you and
That's
like
right.
back and forth.
Wouldn't work.
Okay, so we get started. You get started, you're going. What are some things that you do when you see, as far as crowd control, when you see, I got to get these people engaged? Are you doing heat checks? And if you're doing heat checks, what kind of heat checks are you doing?
Yeah, I use humor. For me, that's just my style. I like to make people laugh. I get people engaged that way. I encourage some audience participation and asking questions along the way, not because I really want it. I really just want the engagement. I don't want the question. I want the engagement, right?
I want you to answer. I don't want your answer, but yes.
Just shake your head for me, please, right? So I do a lot of that with the whole intent of just making sure people are engaged and getting that openness, getting them to think. That's all you're really trying to do is just get people to go, you know what? I need to think differently, and this guy, I think, can help me think differently.
Do you take questions as they come, or do you have them save them?
I do ask questions. I do let them take questions as they come, and I encourage that. But I also I use humor, so I'll say, now I will take some questions as you come in. So please feel free, because I want this to be casual and fun, because that's who I am. Because I wear blue jeans. I do not dress up. I'm not a tie guy. So I'm blue jeans. I go over my Hey Dudes. I go to the office in my Hey Dudes, but I wear nicer shoes. I got
For
my
those
polo.
people that don't know, that is a brand of shoe.
It is a brand of shoe.
Very relaxed brand of
shoe. It's a loafer kind of thing.
It's a Jimmy Buffett kind of, that's probably not right, but it's a very relaxed kind of, yes.
So
I digress. Keep going. No.
Oh, no, great point there. So I will tell people, hey, ask questions along the way, but I do have a timekeeper, and my timekeeper is in this room, and my timekeeper is Stacy, and she is the boss. She is not only the boss at what I do, she's also my wife. And I will tell you, if we do not stay on the schedule, she's going to let us know. So
nice.
we're going to keep it in tune, but I have no problem taking a few questions and making sure.
Crowd control. Problem children. Have you run into that? How do you handle it?
Oh, man. So I don't have a lot of problem children. When I do, I nicely quiet things down a little bit. That's part of the whole, keeping things in order. I jokingly I like to have fun with it, so I will no, don't make Stacy take you out, right? Those are the kinds of things I would do. And I'm a bigger guy, so it's kind of funny that I'm the one saying that to her, that she'd take care of you, right? I did have a couple of ladies that I did not allow into my workshop a couple nights ago, or it was last month, and they were on the wait list, and they were waiting to see if I would have any extra room, and I knew they were only there for the free meal. I knew it. You just know, right? Yeah. And Stacy wasn't going to let them in, and I'm like, Stacy, if they're bold enough to come in off a wait list, not hearing from us, they're going to interrupt right at 6:30 and say there's 2 blank spots right there. And I'm going, now I've lost it for the rest of my folks. So I let them in. I'd let them in because for me, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to mess with it later. I'm going to mess with it now. And you know what? They're going to be the first ones out the door. And guess what? They were the first ones out the door.
They didn't wreck your mojo though, did they?
I wouldn't let them. And the reason I wouldn't let them is because I went out to the lobby and I said, listen, we've got some room. Come on in. We're going to get you settled in. They filled out the form, the little our contact form. We wrote them out a handwritten name badge. Yeah. But my whole intent was I'm not going to let them wreck my mojo by interrupting right at 6:32 and going, hey, there are 2 open spots. We'll just squeeze in.
That was money well spent.
Yeah, that's the way I looked at it.
Did they ask any questions?
Of course not.
Yeah.
In fact, their form was, you confirmed what we thought we were doing properly. Okay, whatever.
Come on.
That's fine.
We should name their names and shame them a little bit.
Yes, shame.
Okay, so you get through, you're watching a crowd. So you're watching a crowd. Anything in particular you're looking for?
I want engagement. And you're actually sitting in a perfect, so Dennis right now, arms crossed.
Very comfortable.
Very comfortable. He's comfortable. I know he's engaged because, he's doing the interviewing here.
My ankles are crossed too,
but
just so you know.
If you think about crossing arms, right, typically that's a sign of I'm not letting you in. I'm protective, right? Yeah. Now, some people just are comfortable that way, but you can tell if they're comfortable or if they're just being bold and, holding their ground. I am looking for visual cues that they are relaxed and letting their guard down. That's the whole reason you do these things. That's why everything I do is to get people in person, because that's what I want to see.
So question then. Here's a question for you. Do you take the time to try to break through that, or do you spend your time on the people that are engaged?
People that are engaged, 100%. If you've got 20 people and you've got 16 that you're getting the response for, the other 4 are going to come around, and if they're not doing anything anyway, so don't waste your time.
Good advice. Good advice. Okay, so you're up there, you're making your mental notes. At the same time, Stacy's sitting in the back of the room. What kind of notes is she taking?
Yeah, that's the cool thing is not only is she taking mental notes, she's actually taking handwritten notes.
Yep.
And that's the coolest part about it is that now we get to prepare notes, and she's got the ability to go, okay, these are the people, and then we can do our homework and go, hey, this person was really engaged. Who was that person? And she does a whole little seating chart. So we know what name everyone was sitting at, because when I'm up there, the name badges help me somewhat, but they're always on the,
hard to see,
or, right below the table. But, guy, yellow shirt, back table. He asked that really good question. Who was that? That's what we remember as speakers. We remember where people are sitting. We remember what they were dressed in. We don't necessarily remember the names that way.
So what kind of notes is she like jotting down questions?
She jots down questions. Yep. She, very engaging. Asked this question. Has a, mother dealt with care? I will always throw in something about, hey, any fellow small business owners out there, right? Those kind of things. It's not because I really want to know, oh, yep, take note, business owner right there, wealthy prospect. No, I don't care about that. I want to know who the business owners are, and I bring them in by saying, hey, I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, right? It's fun. We get to enjoy what we do, but man, that doesn't mean it's always easy.
Yeah.
And so she notes those notes down. Small business owner, has a mother, dealing with care, right? So that's the important stuff.
So how do so we get to the end? It's good night, God bless. How do you shut off questions? Do you do a little Q&A? Let's start there. Do you do a little Q&A?
I usually don't do a Q&A.
Okay.
And the reason I don't is because I make my ending, I know it's a fun night if I get a little bit of applause. And that sounds so lame, but it's kind of funny, right? So every now and then I get it and I'm like, hey, this is cool. It feels exciting, right? Because I like to say entertained. I like to ask if people have been entertained because it can be informative, but I also want it to be entertaining because they came in to learn something. But most people, they teach them stuff, but they don't walk away with anything because it didn't get through. And I take a more entertainment approach. So I make people laugh along the way. So when I wrap things up, they've asked some questions along the way, and I've offered them the real next step, which is, hey, let's figure out how to take this valuable knowledge you've learned today. You got a chance to hear who I am, what I do, how I think. Now let's find out if this relationship actually can make sense for you. Yeah. So we're going to offer that next step.
So when you offer the next step, so is there an evaluation sheet that Stacy has handed out? And if so, when is she giving that to them? Or is it in their folder?
It's not in their folder. Okay. So in their folder is just little bios about us, who we are, all that kind of stuff. Piece, yeah, that's it. Hey, as seen on whatever, right? This podcast is going to be my next one, of course. And so that kind of stuff is in there. When I go around after the event's over, I'm really just walking around saying, "Hey, did you learn some things? Did you get where you were coming from? Great. Fill out that response form in your thing." And I actually tee this up in my presentation, not as a fill it out and let us know your availability. I'm going to assume availability. I'm going to assume they're interested in next steps. I want to know what their pain points are. So that response form has nothing more than what their pain points are. And I want them to check off the boxes. And I word it in a way that says, hey, I do a lot of education. In fact, that's really what I'm here to do. So sometimes I do various topics around the area. I like to know what topics are of concern to you because it gives me the ability to think about other topics. Because if it's interesting to you, then somebody else in the area is thinking the same thing. So I get a lot of fill-outs on those response forms. And then Stacy will walk around. And I'll tell people, Stacy has access to my calendar. She can get us some conversations set up to have that next step. Meanwhile, I'm going to be able to come around, ask a few questions, answer a few questions. That's fine. That's what I'm here for. But most importantly, I'm just going to say thanks for coming.
Yeah. So do they have the ability to schedule time on that form though, right?
Not on the form. I don't put a time on the form. I actually use that form to make sure all the information's there, but I assume they're taking the next step. And so when Stacy walks around, she has my calendar, and she assumes that there's going to be an appointment. And so we work the room. Essentially what we do is we divide it up a little bit, and then she'll kind of say, hey, first table right. That's my cue to go, I need to go to the first table right as my first thing, because she knows who's going to book an appointment. She can tell.
She can tell.
So I go there first, answer a few questions, and I say those are things that we should talk about in that discovery session. That'll give me the chance to get to know you. We'll find out those things, the answers that make sense for your situation. And then what I'll do is I will find out where Stacy is, and I will flip-flop positions with her. She finds the time on the calendar so that I can go around and do the other things.
So how do you what's that mechanically look like? So
a mess.
You guys
organized chaos.
You wrap, you say goodnight, God bless. And you catch Stacy's eye and she's like,
yep.
And for those people that are listening to this, not watching us, I did the head nod. But so she's giving you the nod.
She does a little bit of head nod, but usually it's a little mutter of, middle right or back left, whatever the table is. And then usually I know too, because when she does me that, cue, I have the same intent.
So you go over there, you warm it up to close it, and then you're like, well, you know what? Let me have Stacy come over and she's got the calendar.
That's right.
So you're like, boss, can you come over?
And I'll make a joke. I'll be like, guys, we've tried this where both of us have a calendar. It becomes a mess. So instead what we do is I know who is the best at working my calendar, and that's Stacy. So we're going to get the boss over here. She's going to get you guys settled in. Included in that, which was one of your questions a while ago, was packet, right?
Yeah.
She's got a whole discovery session packet that we bring that's got our little fact finder in it, information where our office is, all of that stuff. She writes down the time frame of that appointment. We do not use technology for this. We've tried.
Yeah.
We used to do it with a Calendly link on our phones.
Yeah.
That's
interesting.
No technology for us was better. And for our audience is better. I mean, you're dealing with people that are, they're probably Facebook users. They're comfortable with computers, but they also came from a day when they don't necessarily have to use technology. So sometimes they kind of appreciate it when you don't.
Do you run into a bottleneck with that?
No. I mean, we do sometimes, but usually what we do is try to work the room effectively. I find that the bottleneck is actually worse with technology, because now you have to type things into the phone and all of those kind of things. Whereas paper, pen, 9 o'clock this day, 1 o'clock that day. We write it down, we hand it out, write their appointment time frame down. And quite frankly, there's just something nice about something handwritten.
Yeah. No,
and now the next day, technology
handwritten,
is
there like is there a confirmation that she's handling, like when you're at the dental office?
We have a confirmation card, and that confirmation card has blanks for dates and times.
And you're doing it right there.
And then she writes down the date and time. That's right. And then they walk away
This is
with
different.
that.
Yeah, this is different.
So I like that personal touch. It does have or not a handwritten. It does have a thanks for attending. We look forward to seeing you. A letter that we write that is hand or typed, along with the fact finder, all that stuff that we need to get.
And you're giving it to them right then.
Give it to them right then. Now technology takes over the next day.
Sure.
So the next day, they get an email. That email is a thank you video from me saying, hey, thanks for attending. I look forward to seeing you in our upcoming discovery session. And oh, by the way, click the link below for directions to our office. Oh, click this link because that form that you got the night of the workshop, it's also attached right here if you'd like to fill it out electronically.
Yeah.
And then we just say bring that stuff in with you.
Interesting. This I will tell you. This is I've had this conversation about 8 or so times, and that's a new one. I'm gonna have to ponder this one. I like that. I like the card written out because we're so used to that. If you have teeth in your mouth, you've gotten that card from your dentist when you're leaving. Your next appointment, so you can just stick it right on the fridge. Different.
And I've seen our dentist actually takes it a step further. You handwrite your name and stuff, and then you get your own letter in the mail, like time to book your annual appointment. I'm like,
letter from the past.
Geez, look at me. I was on it a year ago.
All right, so you've worked the room. You pack up. It's time to adios. It's the next morning.
Yeah.
So what's a little different, assumedly you're going home with your staff in this case. Do you two sit down that evening and go through notes, or do you wait for the morning?
Wait for the morning because my wife is done.
She's tired.
I could talk. I get hyped up, right? So I could talk about it, and she eventually says, "Okay, I'm done talking about this now. We're done." And she cuts me off. She goes to bed.
There you go.
And I sit there and watch some TV thing, and I, think about what I could have done differently.
It's like post game,
right?
Yeah, you're breaking it down post game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next day, you reconvene, you work the schedule, like you go through.
Yeah, first and foremost, anyone that books an appointment. So if we have 12 households, the 7 or so, 8 or so that did do something, we want to get them the things. We send them the calendar link so it's on the calendar. We send the video that we've already canned up that's personalized to them that says here's the things electronically, here's where we are. We want to get those folks that, we're on it and it's taking place, 10 in the morning or so. And I purposely don't do it before then. I want it to be later for sure. But I want it to definitely be in the morning the next day. Then we also have this series of, okay, now who didn't move forward? What are we going to do with those folks? Are there people that said, you know what, can you call us tomorrow? Those are calls that she'll make that point in time, and they still get the same. They get a response too. They get a thank you for coming video. Usually that's at her office, because I want people to think, oh man, I do want to kind of see this guy. That's where he is, And so I'll do a video at the office. Say, hey, come on in. We'd love to see you again. Make sure you take care of those questions you had. We send that out with here's the link to book some time on our calendar, or just reply here. So there's that crowd, right? And and then there's also, people that do not show up. They don't know how awesome you are, right? They don't know. So they just didn't show up for whatever reason. Life came up. So they get sorry, we missed you. You missed something that was amazing, and you need to make sure you attend the next one.
Are you dropping I guess that wouldn't work. Never mind. That's what you're doing right there. You're hitting the folks that registered but didn't. Yeah. That no show.
And including the wait list. Yeah. Sorry you couldn't attend. We had a great turnout. It was crazy. I can't believe. I mean, everyone came. Right. Sorry you weren't able to make it, and sorry we couldn't fit you in. But that doesn't mean that the knowledge is gone. Come on in. We'll go through the things. And the cool thing is, you get the information that's only applicable to your situation.
Nice.
So yeah, all of a sudden we're talking to other advisors here. No, that's what I say to people. But it works. It's fun. I enjoy it.
I like it. That's cool. I like it.
It's a process. Seminars are, and I've got an attorney that I work with on some of my topics, and watching him go through this it's kind of painful, because he calls people buying units. I'm like, what's a buying unit? I mean, at least call them households, and really call them families, right?
Yeah.
And you got to get that personal connection, because if they came into your office because they wanted something solved, that's different. But this crowd is coming in. They think they might need some answers, but they want to get the answers from the person they want to work with.
That's right.
You're doing something different, and you got to make sure you act different.
That's right. That's right. I couldn't agree more on that. What, as you look back now, if you were given advice to the young version of you that's getting ready to start, when you think back, what's actually a little exercise. So ponder for a second, but something that you thought as you walked into, before you started doing these kind of events, something you thought would be a big deal, something you thought that would be, people would love and gravitate towards, and it just crickets. And then the flipsy doozy, something that you didn't think was that big of a deal, but turned up to you as like, why do they like Diet Coke? But it's a big deal.
So I would say, don't get enamored with content. Don't be the smartest person on the slide. Don't put your presentation up there with all this really cool math. It's noise. It's irrelevant. Just put the slide up there and be you. That's the flip side. I held my young self back from being just me. That to me is the most important thing, is just be yourself and let your personality shine through, whatever that is. If you are the smartest person in the room and you are a math person, be that math person. Own it, right? But you got to own who you are, because that's how you're going to get the people that you want to work with. And that, I think, is the biggest takeaway that I've learned over time, is just the more, I used to pull my punches, right? Not that I really punched people or anything, but you pull back on being yourself. Yeah. And now I've just kind of said, no, what? I'm pulling my punches. I'm letting go. I'm just going to say it how it is. And quite frankly, if you want to work with me, that's great. And if you don't, whatever.
Life is short.
It's fine. I don't care.
Life is short.
So I think having that mentality is huge, and it changes everything about what you're trying to do, because you're not trying to find a client in a workshop. You're not. You're trying to find an appointment to see if you can get somebody that makes sense to work with. That's way different ask.
I was going to ask you one more question, but that is the absolute perfect spot to stop right there.
All right.
Chris, thanks for being on. We're going to have you back. I have a couple other topics that we need to talk about. So the next time you're on this side of the state, we'll do it. And then for everybody else, thanks for being here for this episode of The Complete Advisor. Please, if you were watching, don't think that I was closed off. I do like to sit with my arms crossed. But that being said, you can catch all of our episodes on our YouTube channel. You can find us on Spot. You can watch us on Spotify. You can watch us on Apple. We're on everything. We're even on iHeartRadio, for goodness sakes. As another shout out, though, promotional consideration paid to Diet Coke. Thank you, Diet Coke. That cost me 50 cents. I'm not going to tell anybody where you can find a can of pop for 50 cents anymore.
It's pretty cheap.
It is pretty cheap. But for those of you out there, Love it if you'd follow the show. Love it if you'd throw some comments in. If you have any suggestions for any topics that you'd like, please drop them in there. I do look at them. And any comments, constructive criticism or criticism otherwise, I don't mind. Just tell me. But thanks for taking time out of your busy day. We'll see you next episode.